Hello, I am Jake Collins, and this is my commentary for the 12th episode of The Mummy, Secrets of the Medjai, Just Another Piece of Jewellery. The road to the Underworld is paved with MacGuffins, 6 out of 10. This episode is excessively MacGuffin-fuelled, which is certainly saying something at this stage. It's great to see the Scarab again, but of course he uses the MacGuffin to end all MacGuffins to put Alex at a disadvantage. The ensuing sequence of events could have worked pretty well as the concluding part of Alex's personal journey, with everything finally coming together for him both mentally and practically in the end, but only if he had then been able to use his Medjai and Manacle skills in conjunction for his final victory in the second part of this story, and sadly this isn't quite how things look set to pan out. On the plus side, some of the character interplay in this episode is rather nice, and Alex's final encounter with the Scarab, at least for now, is pretty stimulating. Yes, that sums up rather nicely what I thought while watching this episode just now. It really only did just earn its 6, I thought. But yeah, it was the character interplay between particularly Rick and Alex, the stuff with the Scarab and the Minotaur. Well, I don't think I mentioned in the review, did I? But he's a factor as well that really push it up to a 6 for me, because it's not really that good. And this opening sequence at this fortress, abandoned Medjai fortress, certainly sets the tone for the rest of the episode, with the MacGuffin chase. Imhotep's found the Journal of Akim, which reveals the location of the Medallion of the Medjai. Yes, it's time for that to make an appearance now, and maybe we'll find out what the Dark Medjai wanted to do with it. Or, well, maybe we won't. It's quite stimulating, though possibly not worth a 6, the stuff that Alex does in this opening scene, using the manacle to save the others from the volley of arrows and so on. But it's really just serves as a contrast to the rest of the episode and hammers home the fact that Alex is at the peak of his Manacle and Medjai skills at the moment, and he should be using them in conjunction, like he does here at the beginning, and if for some reason he's about to not be able to use them in conjunction here towards the end of his journey, the apex of his skills, that would be very disappointing. So it's mitigated the great work Alex does here. But as I do say in the review there, it could work if Alex was denied his Manacle skills just for a little while in this episode and finally learned the lesson, had it really hammered home to him that he's not reliant on the Manacle. He's still a great fighter, a great Medjai, a great hero without it. And then he was able to reach deep inside himself and reactivate the Manacle anyway, in some way. That would have worked at this stage, and then he'd be able to use his Manacle and Medjai skills together in the final episode. But that's not what happens, and as I keep saying, I find that very disappointing. Alex is drawing all his visions, or this latest vision he's had to add to all his drawings of the other end-of-season visions, again using his diagram sketching skills that we saw in Series 1 a few times, and that's where Arda says, that's the Medallion of the Medjai, and we're like, oh, okay, is it really? It's in Venice, that's where we keep all the Medjai treasures, right, okay. And I was thinking at this point, well, what does it do? Ah, the Minotaur! Hooray! I also thought that when he turned up, that really perked the episode up quite a lot for me. But he's not used as well in this episode as he was at the end of the first season, I must say. And I also thought here, yay, the Scarab too, turning up in succession. A couple of my favourite previous characters turning up again here. But again, the Scarab is used in much better circumstances in his other appearance, so they do lift the episode a little, these two, but only to a 6, and only just to a 6. But yeah, I was thinking there, well, why is the Medallion of the Medjai so important? What does it do? Is it going to be like the Scythe of Anubis? Everyone wants it, but we don't know why. Why did Thoth want it? Why has Imhotep now been so determined to get it and got it for the final encounter of the season? I hope we're going to find out what it does. And of course, I remembered at the end of the episode, oh yeah, we do see what it does, or one thing that it does. I mean, it's pretty obvious, really, isn't it? It opens the door to the Underworld, where the final episode of this season, the final encounter, takes place. And Imhotep wants to use it to open the door to the Underworld, to have this army of jinn at his command, okay. Is that what Thoth wanted, the Dark Medjai wanted? Did he want to get into the Underworld? I can't imagine he'd have been able to control an army of jinn. And, as we'll find out in the next episode, he's there anyway now, Thoth, because he's dead, at last, hopefully. But we're still going to see him anyway. So I can't imagine that's really what he wanted to do with the medallion, exactly what Imhotep does with it. Does it give you some sort of power over the Medjai? I don't think so, only as a symbol, surely. So it doesn't make a great deal of sense as a MacGuffin. I don't like it very much. But here we are with everyone fighting the Scarab, and it is good. It does pick up when the Scarab's on the screen, and as I've said before, I do like this beef between the Scarab and Alex. And Chris says it really well here. I'm going to give you a demonstration of how much better I am. Words to that effect. And it's pretty stimulating. Alex does some great moves here on the Scarab. And he actually, there, as well as kicking the Scarab a couple of times, punches the Scarab. And that reminded me of the point I was making about how Alex doesn't normally punch people and things. In Old Friends, he punched his hand when he was determined, but he didn't punch Anuk-Sunamun. But there we did actually see him briefly, once, punch the Scarab. Oh my god, and here it is, the Naser Nullifier, the MacGuffin to end all MacGuffins. The Manacle's powers are now wiped out. That's not really a good decision for the series. It could have worked if it had only happened in this episode and been part of Alex's journey, but as it is, oof, what a mistake. So yeah, I think that's really the only time you do see Alex punch in a fight, and perhaps they wouldn't want to have him punch a person. Like, that's why we didn't get round to seeing him punch Fadil in the Dark Medjai. Perhaps that would be too aggressive, too overtly violent for a children's cartoon, which I guess is fair enough. But I was quite pleased there to see Alex punch the Scarab, because, well, he should get in a punch somewhere in the series. And he did. And this reminded me a bit of the first season. Alex discovers now that the manacle is useless. He can't rely on it. So what does he do? He falls back on his natural skills, and he does a good job there, jumping up to that cage and whacking the Scarab with it. And why does he do that? To save Rick from the Scarab. Again, Alex's motivation that allows him to do his very best work most often in this series, I think, is helping out Rick, saving Rick. So that works as a part of the series as a whole. Part of Alex's journey. Oh, good. More Rick's dynamite. There's plenty of that in this episode. Maybe that helps to push it up to a 6. But yeah, the manacle is now useless. Okay, I could have accepted that. As I say, to take Alex on this final bit of learning that he's not useless without it. But to fit in with the journey of the series, the emotional investment I've had in Alex and the manacle, overcoming his fear of not being able to control it, the manacle should work again for the season finale, and Alex should use it in conjunction with his Medjai skills to beat Imhotep. It's artistically the wrong decision to have no more manacle after this point, after all the build-up in the series so far. And that's that point made, I think, really. So I'll try not to make it again, but it may occur to me to mention it again as we go through the episode. but it's certainly been made in full now. And I certainly reiterate my point that it is a very pertinent thing to say about this series. Now, Chris gives this line here about what the Scarab has done to the Manacle exactly what it deserves, and makes it sound as stupid as it is. The Scarab shot it with some nullifier thing, and now it doesn't work. I mean, that makes it sound stupid, because it is stupid. But equally, as ever, Chris does give such a wonderful performance and put so much into it. The frustration and disappointment in Alex's voice, where he's describing what happens and hitting the boat. You see, he can punch the boat, but not a person, and saying, oh, it's not fair. It's great stuff from Chris. As I say, whatever you give him to do as Alex, he does brilliantly. But often they give him stuff to do that's bad for the show overall, I think. But he still does such a compelling voice performance, and he's still great to watch. I always enjoy Alex, whatever he's doing, particularly if it's something involving lots of jumping around and kicking stuff and really being a great kid hero. But, yeah, in the context of the show overall, sometimes I think, oh dear, what is going on? Despite the fact that I'm enjoying Alex doing it, whatever it is. Significant line there from the Scarab. Scarab cannot be destroyed, and we'll have to remember that later in the episode, because it could be a significant thing to remember for the possible future of the show, not that it has one. Specifically, Scarab is going to be in a room full of dynamite that blows up at the end of the episode, and that's the last we see of him. But I'm quite sure it didn't destroy him. Probably it put him out of action for a while, but if there were another season, Scarab should be back in it for a final confrontation with Alex, and that's pretty titillating too. But I think it's the right place to get him out of the story in this series and just concentrate on Imhotep, hopefully for the final time, in the very last episode of the season. But saving Scarab up for a final encounter in the future there, that works well. And it could have worked well, as I say, as part of that journey with Alex. His final realisation that he doesn't need the Manacle, but he can use the Manacle if he wants it. And again, Chris is doing some great voice work here, being all disaffected and disappointed. I don't want your sympathy. It has shades of when he was being unpleasant and sulky and overconfident, but he has a better reason for it here. He's very frustrated and disappointed about the Manacle. It is going to affect him. It works as a bit of characterisation, him being this way at this point, and as I say, Chris does do it awfully well, so that's fine. And again, here at the Rock of Gibraltar, that's where Alex should come to the end of this little final journey with the Manacle. And it should work again. They could say something like, if they wanted to do it in a MacGuffin way, now you've touched the medallion of the Medjai, it has reinvigorated the Manacle, and it will work. Or Alex could just reach deep inside himself and realise that he can make it work anyway. If he thought back to his time in China, he might realise that. But no, neither of those things happens. Oh, there's Imhotep doing, water, do my bidding. He doesn't need the Staff of Set for that. And yet I'm sure it's just as much of a magical water feat as that water dragon way back in Season 1. But yeah, that's where we find out what Imhotep's using the medallion for when they're working out all Alex's vision clues. Sun's going to go down at the Rock of Gibraltar at 6:30. Imhotep is going to use the medallion to reflect its rays to open the portal to the Underworld. Makes sense enough for Imhotep, he wants an army of undead, but as I say, I don't think Toph would have wanted to do that. Why did he want it? I don't know. Nobody knows. Now here we go, Alex's journey. We know perfectly well that Alex is more than physically strong enough to pull himself and Rick up that rope if he put his mind to it. But of course, because of the blow with the Manacle, He's lost his confidence, and so they fall into this cave, and that makes sense. That's fine. I'm perfectly prepared to see Alex in that situation, not believing in himself there. But it's got to lead to the right conclusion, and it doesn't. But this scene with Rick and Alex in the cave is quite nice. They're genuinely talking about their feelings again. Look, you're not useless. You're still a Medjai. And Alex is beginning to realise that that's true. And perhaps even more importantly, you're an O'Connell. And O'Connells never give up. And then, of course, we cut to Jonathan saying, I give up. Now, is that a deliberate piece of, oh yeah, well, O'Connells don't give up, but Carnahans do? Or is it the writer of this episode, Marty Eisenberg, who's not a regular, not realising that Jonathan isn't actually technically one of the O'Connells, he's a Carnahan? I don't know. It would be nice to think that it was a deliberate O'Connells don't give up, but Carnahans do, ha ha ha, but I rather suspect that Marty didn't realise that Jonathan wasn't called Jonathan O'Connell. But there we go. I guess it can still work if you give Marty the benefit of the doubt. And here's where Rick and Alex find all this dynamite and put it to good use with the Scarab. In just a moment. And as I say, that's right. We should get the Scarab out of the series for now. And then in the next episode, get rid of Imhotep forever. And then the Scarab comes back for a final encounter where Alex defeats him in the next season. Or a spin-off season, if there was one. And you'll notice there Alex has got some of his confidence back after his chat with Rick. He leaps in and catches the medallion of the Medjai when it's going to fall. And that's where someone could say, oh, look, the manacle's going to work again. Now you've touched it to the medallion. I mean, we'd believe that after all the MacGuffin-driven stuff at this stage. And again, it's to save Rick. Alex leaps in there and kicks the Scarab off screen. As I say, I really do believe in the Alex and Rick relationship and how strong it is. And the way they do protect each other and help each other is really good. So that makes a lot of sense with helping Alex to overcome his doubts and fears as well. But as I say, and I said I wouldn't say it again, but I'm going to anyway, all we need now is, the manacle works again. Alex has learned his lesson, and everything's ready in place for the final episode. But no, we're going to get, well, it doesn't matter anyway, Alex has magic powers, which, as I will go on to explain further in the next episode, I do find rather disappointing, although I suppose I've really explained all the points of why I find it disappointing already. We've had our journey with Alex. That's not the end we were promised. It's emotionally rather a letdown. Despite the fact, as I really will say in the next episode, that Alex jumping about, kicking Imhotep's absolute butt and killing a load of djinn as well is highly stimulating anyway. And here we go, Alex's final encounter for now with the Scarab, and it's the right place to have his last encounter in this season with the Scarab. And Alex has learned his lesson. He's relying on himself again. He's using all these great gymnastic skills, and how well they match up once more, his face work there to Chris's brilliant voice acting, and excellent flipping around there so that he tricks the Scarab into falling in with all the explosives. Excellent. Rick's dynamite is utilised. Dad, now. And what's happening, thinks the Scarab? Oh my god, I'm going to be blown up. And he is. But, as I said, the Scarab cannot be destroyed. That's sorted him out for now, so we can get on with the end of the season. But there's more to come from him in the future. Except there is no future. Except in the minds of those who'd like to create one for themselves. And in my opinion, the Scarab should certainly be in it. And so should Jack O'Connell, and Janet, and Fadil, and Safine. And the Minotaur, but not necessarily Imhotep or Colin Weasler. At least, not very much. And I shall continue with many of those points, and perhaps make some new points, and round up my overall feelings, hopefully, in the commentary for the next episode, which is the final episode of all. Although it wasn't written as such, I'm not surprised it wasn't renewed after that, because really, as I say, this season is a bit all over the place. I think it's TV tropes that says it failed to find an audience, and perhaps as a series overall, I can see why that might be the case. But anyway, do join me again for the last commentary on our little journey through The Mummy the Animated Series, for the final episode, The Reckoning.